Adriano, the emperor who walked away from football. At 22 years old, Adriano looked like he was about to become the next great Brazilian superstar. He was powerful, frighteningly fast, had a left foot capable of destroying a goalkeeper from distance, and was becoming one of the biggest names at Inter Milan. They called him the Emperor, but within a few years, the player who looked destined to dominate European football was struggling to even stay in it. And the strangest part is that Adriano's downfall wasn't really caused by football. There was no career-ending tackle, no doping ban, no huge transfer disaster. Instead, one phone call from Brazil changed his relationship with football forever. And years later, Adriano would admit something almost unbelievable. At Inter Milan, he sometimes arrived at training drunk while the club reportedly told journalists he had physical problems. So how did one of the most naturally gifted strikers of his generation go from being called the Emperor to leaving European football while still in his 20s? Adriano grew up in Vila Cruzeiro in Rio de Janeiro and came through Flamengo's academy. His combination of size, speed, and technique immediately made him unusual. He wasn't simply a big striker who could overpower defenders. He could dribble, he could create, and most importantly, he possessed an explosive left foot that made shooting from distance look almost unfair. European football quickly noticed. Inter Milan brought him to Italy in 2001. After spells that included Fiorentina and Parma, Adriano returned to Inter and exploded into one of Europe's most feared attackers. This wasn't a player slowly approaching his prime. He looked like he was arriving early. For Brazil, things were happening just as quickly. Adriano starred as Brazil won the 2004 Copa America, finishing as the tournament's leading scorer. A year later, he was again one of Brazil's biggest stars as they won the Confederations Cup. Brazil already had Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and Kaká. And somehow, Adriano looked capable of becoming another superstar in that generation. Inter supporters gave him the perfect nickname, L'Imperatore, the Emperor. Then came August 2004. Adriano received devastating news from Brazil. His father, Almer, had died from a heart attack. Adriano was only 22, and according to Adriano himself, something inside him changed after that moment. His father hadn't simply been a parent watching his career from a distance. He was one of the reasons Adriano loved football in the first place. Years later, Adriano explained that after losing his father, football stopped feeling the same. He was living thousands of miles away from his family in Italy. The stadiums were full. The money was enormous. The expectations were growing. But privately, Adriano was struggling. He later spoke openly about falling into depression. And then he started drinking. From the outside, Adriano was still a superstar. There were goals. There were trophies. There was the famous number 10 shirt. But behind the scenes, his life was becoming increasingly difficult. Adriano later admitted that he drank heavily while playing for Inter. Sometimes, he said, he would arrive at training drunk. According to his own account, Inter's medical staff would allow him to sleep in the infirmary while explanations involving physical or muscular problems were given publicly. Think about that. One of the most valuable forwards in European football could be presented to supporters as unavailable because of a physical issue while the real problem was happening far away from the cameras. His performances became less predictable. His fitness became a concern. His weight fluctuated. And the unstoppable striker who once looked capable of becoming the world's best was slowly disappearing. In April 2009, Inter and Adriano terminated his contract by mutual consent. He was only 27. A player who should have been entering the prime of his career was effectively walking away from the highest level of European football. Then, in December 2024, Adriano finally received the farewell his career never really had. A testimonial match was organized at the Maracana featuring Flamengo legends and players connected to his years in Italy. Adriano played. His son played alongside him. He scored. But then the night became deeply personal.